Tim Gray is the Executive Director of Environmental Defence Canada. We've reached him in Toronto today. Tim Gray, first of all, thanks for taking time to speak with me. It's good to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's start with a bit of a primer on the plastics recycling industry. I guess all of these stories now have put this in front of Canadians again. And I think those Canadians who have recycling programs and who make a real effort to put those plastics in the blue bins are kind of wondering how we've become the scorn of these Asian countries. What's happened? Why are we getting this pushback from Asia?
Yeah, it is interesting. I think people really are concerned. The reason for the pushback is that we have been exporting a lot of our plastic to Malaysia. We used to be sending it to China, and they closed their borders to it. So now it's ending up in Malaysia, and as people will see online and news, a lot of that plastic, both domestically produced in Malaysia, but also the stuff that we send there, ends up in the oceans around the world. And we see all the pictures of that showing up in whales and on beaches, etc. So we have a real plastic crisis in this country. Only about 9% of it actually gets recycled.
Right.
And that's just because of the way we've constructed our system. We don't have any financial or regulatory systems in place that would require it to be recycled. So most of it ends up in landfill or exported to other countries in the world. And we're finding increasingly that people don't want it.
Okay, let's drill down on some of those issues a little bit. I'll get to the regulatory and perhaps solutions part coming up in just a bit, but let's dial back a little bit. Why do shipping containers of plastic bags and plastic packaging from this country end up in the Philippines or Malaysia? Why have we come to the point where even they don't want it?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing in China, which was first, and now Malaysia, is that they have so much production of domestic plastic there and inadequate recycling systems themselves that they really do not want to be taking more waste from other places in the world. But unfortunately, there is no legal prohibition that would stop Canadian companies or municipalities from sending that plastic to Malaysia, and that's why it ends up there. And then they, find that they cannot do anything with it, and so they're, wanting to send it back. I think the key issue is we shouldn't be sending it in the first place.
All right, so we know that Canadians, you touched on some of these numbers, we produce 3.2 million tons of plastic waste every year. As you said, only 9% of it's being recycled. 2.8 million tons ending up in landfills. What does that say about whether plastics recycling is actually working in this country? Because there's always the messaging to do it, to put the stuff in the blue bins, to do your part, but what's actually happening?
Yeah, clearly the system's broken. I mean, people at a household level do try and do their best for the most part, things that they're told to put in their blue bins. But part of the problem is that many of the sources of plastic don't have blue bins, and that's commercial and industrial waste. So none of that is actually sorted and put into recycling. And then even the stuff that goes from houses, a lot of that stuff, the capacity to recycle it in this kind of place, so it ends up either in landfill or being exported as well. So that's why you see such a disconnect between what people are doing at the homeowner level and that are actually going into landfill or into export.
And I think people want to participate in these programs if they think they're making a difference, and they don't even. I guess they don't even mind paying for the costs of having recycling. But I guess at the end of the day, do municipalities make money or lose money with recycling programs? Is it an effective way to do things?
Well, we need to have a collection system, and right now the municipalities, therefore you, as taxpayers in those municipalities, are paying for the system. And where most modern systems are tracking is towards something called extended producer responsibility. So the manufacturers of products, especially around products that come in plastic packaging, would be responsible for the collection and recycling of this plastic. So there would be a transfer of the responsibility from municipal governments to the companies that produce the material. And of course, there's then huge financial incentives for them to simplify packaging, reduce packaging, to reduce their costs. And this is the way that most modern systems have moved, especially in Europe.
Okay, so where do you think we start here? What has to happen in this country? I mean, I think we've heard that we need certain programs in place here, returnable and recyclable products by manufacturers. So in other words, they make things that they know people can return to them. How important would that be, and what other things do you think we need to do if we're going to have the system work?
Yeah, that's critical is to make the producer responsible. And the way of creating a market for the recycled plastic is to stipulate that new plastic products, especially in the packaging realm, have to include a certain portion of recycled plastic. And that helps to create a market, which then ensures that there's a demand domestically within Canada for the collected plastic, and so that there's a value to it. And as soon as something has a value, the market is very good at addressing, filling that need. So setting targets and setting requirements for recycled content, that therefore creates a value, making the producer responsible, bringing in deposit return programs for many products. For example, here in Ontario, where I live, there is no deposit return system on all the plastic bottles that we have, which is 3 billion a year. We know from other jurisdictions that if you put a price on those bottles, say a 10-cent deposit, that you can get upwards of 90% of them recovered. And we're only at about 40% here with the Blue Box program. So massive, massive increases in the amount of recovery. You create huge new opportunities for employment. It's been estimated that moving to an EPR system in Canada would create 42,000 jobs and save hundreds of millions of dollars a year for municipalities. So there's financial, taxpayer, environmental, and employment benefits from changing the system.
Right, and would the system change without, let me frame it this way, what's the role of governments here? Is this something that would be done voluntarily? Have we seen that by industry, or is this something that has to be regulated and enforced?
No, it's a situation where government needs to create the market. So the intervention here is setting the targets and making sure that they're met and that they're enforced. Once you actually create recycled content requirements for products, then the market will address it. So most of what can be done here is basically government tweaking the marketplace and making it perform more effectively to ensure this development of a circular economy so that the plastic is reused. Right now, we have a linear economy for plastics. So we go from oil to plastic to the environment. And if we want to change that, then government needs to intervene and set the baseline rules, and then the market will help sort out how it works. They can do that. The market will do that very efficiently.
All right, let's finish up and let's go back to where we started in the conversation. That is garbage coming home, if I can put it that way. The Philippines is shipping dozens of containers full of contaminated plastic waste back to Vancouver this week at about a cost of $1 million to Canadian taxpayers. What will happen to it?
Well, it's going to be incinerated, and that's probably what will happen to the Malaysian garbage as well. This is, going to have a review by Canada Border Inspection Agency. It's coming back from another country. We don't necessarily know what's in it. There's possibilities that other stuff could have been added to it. We also don't know where it came from originally, so there could be contaminated waste in here, electronics, heavy metals, etc. So it'll have to be sorted. And then my understanding of what's happening to the stuff from the Philippines is going to be incinerated within the incinerator that's in control of the city of Vancouver. I would guess we'd see a similar trajectory for the stuff coming in from Malaysia.
All right. Well, listen, thanks very much for giving us your view on this today. Tim Gray from Environmental Defence Canada. We'll talk again. Take care.
Thank you. Have a nice day.